Intersectionality. Now, you've probably never heard of the word, but if you are planning to move abroad or even travel abroad, it's something you're probably going to want to know about. So, intersectionality is a term that was coined by a professor at UCLA. Her name is Kimberly Shaw. And in layman terms, in basic terms, intersectionality is the acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences of discrimination and oppression. And we must consider everything and anything that can marginalize people: gender, race, class, sexual orientation, physical ability, etc. So I'm going to talk about my experiences with intersectionality. I did not know the term, say, in a textbook school setting or anything like that, although I wish I would have. I learned about intersectionality by life happening to me. And if you've been on my page, or welcome to my page, my name is Jessy. I talk about travel and expat life because this is what I have been doing for about 10 years now, moving and traveling abroad, doing back and forth. And intersectionality, I first came into contact with it in South Africa while I was in the Peace Corps. And this is what happened. I was sent to live in a village, a region called Limpopo, close to, it actually borders like Zimbabwe, Botswana, and the northern part of South Africa. I was sent to live in that region. And one of my fellow volunteers, she actually was in the neighboring village next to me, which the village actually used to be one, but it got separated into two. So, essentially the same people, more or less. And Peace Corps, in all honesty, they did prepare us for some things. They told us the racial things that we could have faced, some discriminations, if I'm going to be blatant. As somebody who had actually lived in South Africa prior to that and who had done extensive research on South Africa, and anybody who hasn't even done extensive research, everybody knows about, or should know about, apartheid and how that experiment, I don't even know what to call it, how that time, that unfortunate time in South Africa, what it's done to the population there. So I understand that. Anyways, so even Skirt trained us for that. One day I remember she came to me and she was telling me that her principal had told her that he was happy that he did not get a Black volunteer. And she told me this like almost with like a, on her phrase, not like happy, but like very emphatically. Zero empathy for me, who was a Black volunteer, who she was saying these things to. And that surprised me because, again, I said Peace Corps trained me for that. What did surprise me was the way that she delivered the message to me. Sometimes we were trained and told that some people may not necessarily value a Black volunteer initially, although some people had worked against that and changed the people's mind, which I was hoping that if that was the case, that I was going to be able to do. And it got a lot more complex than that. But Peace Corps did not teach me about intersectionality. Like I said, I had no knowledge of the word prior to that, but stay with me. So after she told me that, matter of factly, I was, like I said, I was prepared for that. I did definitely feel like I had some discrimination towards one member of my family. I definitely did have some towards my principal. I mean, I don't think he was pretty good. I had a pretty good principal, but I knew the underlying sentiment was that they'd probably want a white volunteer. And one of the reasons why is because most people abroad, and this is why I'm talking to you about this, most people abroad, when they think of Americans, they think of a white person. Although America is a society full of Asians, people of European descent, African descent, all types of people in between. But usually when, people who are obviously not that exposed, they're in a village, they only see certain images and views of America. So for them, it would I can understand the mindset where they feel like having a white volunteer is like an honor, that they have American, versus me, who I look like a typical South African girl. I have their complexion. I look like a South African girl. And imagine you telling everybody that you're going to have an American there. And, some people don't realize this, but that's one of the American privileges. That's going to be another video. Is that sometimes American people or people from certain Western countries are seen as a status symbol. So, okay, that interaction happened. This is where I just had to stomach it. I pretty much just had to stomach it. She told me what her principal said. She said it matter-of-factly, and it is what it is. Okay, I had to stomach it. I definitely told her some of the other issues that I had with my host family and like how I felt like, it was discrimination. And she was just like, oh, you're overthinking it. You're overthinking it. No. I remember that attitude as well. Then later in the Peace Corps, we were assigned 2 doctors, one female, one male. She had an interaction with one of the male doctors, something with birth control, and it wasn't doing her well. And she was saying like basically tears in front of everybody, like, her issue hadn't been addressed well. It was not seriously. And it was like tears, and everybody's supposed to empathize and feel sorry. And I was like, wow. So she knows what empathy is. And she wants to be sorry for what she has been discriminated against. But when I was discriminated against, it wasn't the same energy. You understand what I'm saying? And as a woman, I could relate to her and understanding that. I could understand that. But she couldn't understand my struggles as a Black person, and in particular, a Black woman. Do you get me? So you need to understand that, especially depending on what country you're going to. If you're traveling in a group of girls, let's say that you went to a certain country and you see that they're a certain race and you're a certain race, and they're getting more preference and things like that, and you're not. That's where intersectionality can come to play a role. It's important to understand that. So the professor who originally termed the term, you should definitely go and check her out. She talks intersectionality is in the US, where, like, for example, black men can understand things with me or relate to me as far as racism, but they might not understand things with me as far as genderism. You know what I'm saying? Like, in that aspect. But all concepts that you need to be familiar with. But in what I'm trying to say in short is that it can affect you abroad, and you need to be prepared for that. Whether you're traveling in a girl group with different people, or whether you're living in a country that has these types of remnants of racial issues, you need, or even other things like colorism, things that you need to be aware of that. And intersectionality was unfortunately a term that I wasn't trained for in the Peace Corps, but I learned exactly what it was after it had happened to me. I couldn't explain what had happened to me. I know it didn't feel right. I couldn't express it. But I remember one time I was actually in the village, and I was going on YouTube, and it popped up, and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I felt. So I say all of this to pretty much just to prepare you. Honestly, the way the world works, there's like no real way that you could really avoid some of these types of things. But the best thing that I can do, especially as a Black solo female traveler, is to share these topics with you guys. One of the reasons why I started this page was because I was very keen on giving younger girls, or girls in general, this information so that when they do get ready to move abroad, or when they do start to travel and these things happen to them, they are prepared. So yeah, I learned about afterhand. This is your chance to learn about it beforehand, and if it does happen to you, you'll be a lot more prepared to navigate the situation. Hope that it helps. Thanks for watching. Bye.